Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another car video. Most women will have an attraction to three types of men. Three types, and it's not what y'all think. Because these attractions are all individual. It's not a general thing like all women are attracted to this guy and everything, this particular guy. But according to each woman, and they'll define those men differently, right? So three types of men. Now, the one a lot of people talk about, especially in these spaces, is the fantasy man. Those are the alpha showpieces. Shout out Cousin T-Tar. Those are the Chaz and Tyrones, which a lot of guys focus on. You know, the Jeremy Meeks of the world. Those are the fantasy guys that any woman, like every woman's going to have a fantasy guy, just like us. Every man got a fantasy woman. You know, it got to be that woman, she got the pretty face, big old breasts, slim waist, big old booty. Well, that's mine. Shapely legs. But then somebody else might have it slightly different, but every man has it. Just like every man has a fantasy woman, every woman got a fantasy man. And indeed, that's a big part of the game of the diesel workers, the male diesel. Shout out Master Teacher BGS on the octane scale. Those are the male sex workers. Those are the male exotic dancers, the gigolos, the beach boys down in Bali or Jamaica, in Ghana, in Kenya, and everything. So those are fantasy type of guys and stuff. All women have that. All women have that type. But see, the thing is, one thing a lot of guys don't get, they're not prevalent. They less than 1% of the population. In fact, you could argue they 1% of 1% of the population. So, women will pay for them and everything, but the key word with them is fantasy. Fantasy. And the key thing is why they tend to be sex workers is they're giving a woman a fantasy. Think about it. A man giving a woman a fantasy, okay, he's going to be, physically attractive and all of that. Handsome face, he's going to have that height, all of that stuff. Seemingly perfect and stuff. Ideal. But a woman, honestly, without paying for it or traveling, a woman can go years, decades without meeting one in person. And of course, when you got social media, some people look at the thirst comments, they getting all the women and stuff. No, they're getting all the likes. It's a different thing when it comes down to dealing with it. But rest assured, if they can run into one, if a woman can get over like any nervousness and the dude got enough smoothness, oh yeah, he can get some. But we talking 1% of the population. Right? So that's one, right? That's one. That's one type. And they got it. And that's one thing guys got to understand. Because that's why I've always argued about, dudes getting too caught up into that. I was like, how often do you see that type of dude just in your ordinary travels? Most dudes are going to be average. Black pillars would call them high-tier normies. Well, that's what they are. That's most men. Most men are in the normal range. Most. All right? But like I said, a woman will have a fantasy about it. And, like I said, they'll hit the strip club. They'll go see the Magic Mike show in Vegas and everything. And, and they play into the fantasy. And there's a psychological component to it. It ain't just the looks, but if you notice what they do, they play to it. They'll give the woman some attention. They'll play to her vanity. That's what the woman wants. When they go on those sex tourism vacations, that's what the woman wants. She wants that guy who's going to play to her, tell her how beautiful she is. So, but that's the fantasy. In real life, it might not happen like that, but that's part of it. So that's one type right there. That's one type right there. Yeah, y'all gotta give me a second as I'm talking. I gotta make sure my glasses are clean. I can't be fogged up. All right, so that's one type. The second type is her actual preference. The second type is her actual preference and everything. Now, her preference is usually formed by her imprint. Now, let me be clear on the imprint, because I see a lot of guys talk about it, and quite frankly, they get it wrong. Keep in mind, I'm the one who introduced the term to this space. And it was a term I learned back in 2007 and had a chance to study it. And for those who say, well, ain't nobody talking about it in science and stuff, look up Dr. John Money and look up the term love maps. And in fact, in indigenous cultures, they've already known about the imprint. That's why you get some indigenous cultures, they will control who the young lady has sex with. Now, imprint is a blueprint, a psychological blueprint within the woman, a subconscious blueprint that combines the traits of the first three men she had sex with. Sometimes it could really go down to two. And I generally say three just to cover it, but at least two. I put it like that. At least two, at most three. That's why when some guys say, well, they imprinted a woman, you might have been part of it. And what I ask them always is, were you among her first three? If you were number four, you weren't part of her imprint. At best, you might have turned her out sexually, but she ain't imprinted. That's like hitting her with a drug. And at best, you might be the third type, at best, or set the type for, at best. And even then, well, no, that's it. Even then, not really. But the imprint is a psychological because when women have sex with those first three men subconsciously, and it gets even, it's a psychological thing, it's a physical thing. Her subconscious records the traits of these guys and makes changes to the woman so she can attract those guys. It's like her subconscious is saying, hey, oh, this what you like? Okay, this is what we're going to do with you. All right? But here's the thing with the imprint, though. Here's the thing. Those three men ain't necessarily the same. They ain't the same guy. Yeah, they could be totally different guys. And of course, the overall imprint draws from all of them. But physically and personality wise, they could all be different. You know, like say her imprint is a dude who's slightly overweight, and since people bring height into it, say he's 5'9" and about 30 pounds overweight. Now, I know some people will say, well, how could that happen? And all these little girls, they wouldn't deal with that. They could be in the same church, school, something. Some way they got to know each other. Some way, you know? Whatever way it is, that's who he is, right? So the first guy could be, you know, slightly overweight, 5'9". But then the second guy, oh, he could be the star basketball player and stuff. He could be the star basketball player, 6'4", you know, totally muscular and everything and stuff. And incidentally, with the man, the first one, he could have been, you know, a little overweight, 5'9", a little overweight, and very extroverted. He's a cool guy. That was part of his game anyway. He's just cool. He can make a woman laugh. He could touch them emotionally. Check out my main video today and everything. So, but then the other guy is more, yeah, he's physical and everything, but he's more introverted. He's quiet and stuff, and quiet and actually more serious and stuff. And, you know, he's the type, he only talk when he got to say something. Okay, those two going into the mix. And then the third guy, he could be some like scrawny nerd. Like little nerd, more bookish and everything. He ain't into sports, he ain't the most gregarious. And she kind of got with him because they were working on some project or something. They in school or something and working on a project, right? So, those the three. Now, somebody would say what that do. One, the imprint will be a combination of them, but it'll give her a range of guys she'll deal with. What happens with most women anyway, they got a range of guys they'll deal with. And anybody, like, I'll give you an example. Hold up. I'll give you an example, right? If you look at many women, especially women who got multiple children from multiple men, if you see the fathers of those children, they don't look alike. But if you talk to the women, they like both of them. Like a woman can like a range, just like men. Now, I use myself, you know, I'm always saying I like a big old butt dunk. But I've dealt with women who are very much on the slim petite side. Even did a video on here with one. Y'all can look for it. And and then also some women who might have been had big breastises, even though as long as they got enough breasts so I know that they female and stuff. But that means, and that's just me. And most men can do that. Women the same way. Like a woman, especially a cheating woman, like say a woman cheat, she could have that guy who actually looked like an alpha showpiece as a husband. But he ain't giving her enough attention and everything. He only having sex with her maybe once a week. So she got that one guy who work on her job, don't look anywhere near, but he giving her all that attention and stuff. And he nasty. He looking at her, licking his lips. She'll still have sex with him. She'll have attraction for both of them, but just in a different way. So if a woman's imprint, getting back to the woman's imprint, her preference could be a range of guys who generally fit in that range. But then there's another aspect to it as well, the psychological aspect. I'm going to get into that in a bit. But then, you got the fantasy guy. Then you got the preference guy. But then you got that third guy that hits her on a different level. And this is one that the woman never suspects. Many a woman has got with a guy who was not her type on any level. He wasn't the fantasy type. Definitely wasn't the fantasy type. Ain't enough of them to go around any damn way. And most of the time, if they mess with a woman, they want some money. So most women ain't gonna even get with them. Their preference, they have a better chance of getting with that. But what happens when they meet that guy and it's not their physical type? Hell, might not even be their personality type normally. But he hits her on such a level, like they in a position where he can interact with her. Like say they work together. This especially happens on stuff like that. They work together, he gets her laughing, gets her comfortable. He touches her emotionally. He touches her emotionally. Right? Think about it. Think about it. All of a sudden, basically, he grows on her. He grows on her. See, once a man touches a woman emotionally, it starts to touch her womb. All of a sudden, she start being slightly aroused sexually when he comes around, and it could be just slight. It ain't gonna be right away like that ASP or the her general guy who resembles her imprint and stuff. Oh, let me say something real quick about that imprint thing again too. Because a lot of guys think, I broke the woman's imprint. I broke the woman's imprint. Only way you have a chance is if you resemble it to begin with. Okay, I needed to get that out. But getting back to that third type of guy, and it's the guy she don't suspect. You talk to women. Like, see, here's the thing, man. I actually talk to women, both just on a casual basis and official basis. A third of my clients are women. And shoot, in fact, going back, there was a time all my clients were women and stuff for a long time. All of them were. And I'll be telling them some stuff. I got a woman's channel. And you talk to them, and they'll talk about a guy that turned them out or something. And they say, you know what, he ain't even my type. They'll be like, he ain't that handsome. I don't know what it is. But, in fact, sometimes, honestly, it could be what Master Teacher BGS calls the thunderbolt. It's just something. Like, sometimes you just run into that person, you're like, I'm attracted to this person. Like one of my best lady friends doesn't resemble what I always say I like. I'm like, her butt ain't all that. She more on the petite side. And her butt ain't like a pow-pow. But me and her just click. Women are the same way. Women are the same way. Why this person riding my damn whatchamacallit? I should just stop real quick, hit the car, because my insurance would get it and everything. God damn, dude, I hope you driving to get some pussy driving like that, motherfucker. Shit. But anyway, sometimes they'll meet a guy, and it's not like, if you ask that woman what her preference is, she'll say, yeah, it's this type of guy. She'll describe him. He got to be built or whatever her imprint was. But You get that guy who resembles none of that, but got the woman like crying. She be all in love and everything. And it's always the same thing. In fact, they might say he's sexy in his own way. A lot of guys are getting, but like I said, just to be clear, it's almost never a case of them meeting a woman just randomly. Almost never a case of meeting them online. In that situation, it's usually a woman had a chance to get to know a man, and she got to see different parts of her. And let me go in deeper with that. Let me go in deeper. And people know I've talked about the house of the woman. Shout out Master Yao and Yamache Morris. He has a book, Awaken the Master Feminine, where he talks about the house of the woman. In fact, I'm gonna put that in, I'm gonna put a link for that in the description box. One thing about women, okay, let's go over it real quick. In fact, I talked about the house of the man and the house of the woman at the last self-improvement summit. All right, let's break it down about the house of the woman. There's 4 pillars to it. These are subliminal, these are subconscious things. All women have them. All women have these things, but you know, it might not be apparent with some women. Some they're gonna have something suppressed. It's not fully brought out, but it's still there. Just real quick, all human beings got a lot of stuff within, but only using a tiny percentage of their consciousness or the skills they have in their DNA. So, but getting back to that, let me roll this down a bit until I'm ready to go. Getting back to that, like say the house of the woman. So you got like the 4 pillars. You got the moon, allegorically called the moon. That's the nurturing instinct of a woman. You got the seated hawk. That's the more cerebral aspect of a woman, the more intuitive aspect. You got the treasure chest. That's that more business type of woman. She gathers goods and everything. Men are hunters, women are gatherers. Then you got the elegant rose. That's that pleasure center in women and stuff. Whatever one is active, if a man, say a man, okay, he ain't the alpha showpiece, and he's not like, he doesn't resemble her imprint, but he's in a position where she can get to know him. Depending on which one of her houses is strongest, she's going to respond to that guy. Like you say, the moon woman, she's the nurturer. That's the mama. That's the soccer mom. That's the one who she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, right? She wants to be a stay-at-home mom. All right, a woman like that, she wants a paternal man. So say she meets a man maybe on her job someplace. He's more paternal. He's like, he could be, even if she don't have kids, he could be like somebody who works with kids in soccer. Like I always tell that story about that one woman who didn't think I was all that. She didn't think much of my looks, and she wasn't impressed by my educational background or anything. But the thing that turned her on about me was that I did 2 things that turned her on. Actually, she told me too. One, I went to the store for my grandmother would buy her groceries. And 2, I coached some kids in soccer. She was extremely family orientated, so that's what turned her on about me. And then if you get that woman who's a bit more cerebral and stuff, more intuitive, more on, you know, she's more right-brained and like, like really right-brained. She's intuitive, but she's more of a thinker. And yes, there are some women who are thinkers. The type of guy that's going to start tapping into that is a thinker. You know, the type of guy, that's a guy who's a thinker as well. That guy who can stimulate her mentally, because that's where she is. She's in her head more and stuff. Women like that are usually cool, but only thing is they don't usually have that sex appeal unless they just have naturally pretty features, and some guy just don't care about the actual sex appeal. But anyway, so she wants that guy, you know, you can talk about the latest book or something. You can have that deep conversation. And she might, okay, like that thinking type of woman, she more cerebral. Okay, she run into that guy. He ain't an alpha showpiece, so he ain't the fantasy. Doesn't resemble her imprint. So she ain't thinking much, but then they start to talk. It gets past all that other stuff and taps into it. And she'll feel a natural connection. The treasure chest woman, You know, you might be just some dude working on a job or something, but she see you hustling and everything. Or you meet her someplace, like say you meet her, she got her hustle. She's a vendor or something. She's selling some shea butter or something like that. You get there and y'all start talking business and stuff because you a hustler too. All of a sudden she getting excited. She was like, oh man, y'all conversations might be more about how to make that money, but she getting slowly turned on. And then the elegant rose, that's the party girl. Have you, like, one thing, yeah, like they prefer the fantasy guy, or their preference they prefer, but one thing that will hit them, you're a party guy too, even if you don't resemble the imprint or the ASP. So that's how it is. It's usually when you get that guy, I'm gonna tell you what, usually when you get that guy who's not a woman to say he's not her type, but he can get in there and he's tapping into something deep in her psyche and stuff. Now, just to be clear, that's just one type. Now, if an ASP or a preference type of guy, imprint type of guy can do the same thing, oh, they in heaven. But, and in general, that's how some guy might get in. So it's usually those three types, usually. And now, I'm saying that in general, of course, depending on the woman, she could just be open. You know, whoever. She can be open to whoever. You get something like that. But if anybody who doubt that, ask yourself how a woman is having like multiple babies by different men, and the men don't resemble each other in any way. I've known that. I've known women like that for decades. But they love the men, and the men in their eyes are still select. But it's not a thing of. It's never a thing of. They going to be absolute. Now, see, some guys don't see that. They don't believe that. But this is what I always say about guys. Talk to the women. Pay attention to the women. Ask yourself how this woman can have multiple kids by totally different men. Ask yourself, how is it they can cheat on one man, even if he could be good, he can be conventionally handsome, with a guy that don't look as much, look the same. But see, that other guy is bringing something to her. He's bringing something to her. So it's like it's something. It's something. Because women in general, I mean, the most of them ain't stuck on one type, regardless of what they say. Because if you, okay, any woman you know and you've been able to see who she's dated and all of that, you might see some resemblance, but at the end of the day, it's different types of guys. Think about all the women that you've known personally and you've seen their boyfriends or something. It's like, well, they're dissimilar. Or women who might have got married or something. Now, or twice. Now, some guys will say, well, it's alpha fucks and beta bucks. We need to get off of that. It's not even so much, because I've known women and they would treat both guys the same way. I've known plenty of women. They would have two different boyfriends. I would know the guys and I was like, ain't nothing really similar about these two. I've known plenty of women. They'll be all heads over heels in love with some big old stocky guy. You know, one of those hominy grit eating dudes, football player types. But then a few months later, you see him with the slim guy. Now, some people will say, well, that's what she wanted all along. But she'll leave the slim guy, and then the next guy will be a bigger guy. But then somebody will say, well, that's what she wanted anyway. No, it don't work. See, get out the linear stuff. Women, you talk to any woman, any woman, you'll see, shoot, they'll have a range of guys that they feeling. If you ask them, just be honest with them. You show them pictures of several guys, and I can guarantee, I'm gonna say guarantee, and these guys look totally different. They're gonna find a few they find handsome, and all of them ain't gonna say the same guy, but they're gonna find a few in there. But then if you look at the guys, it's gonna be different jaw lines, different heights, different races. They will say a multitude. Because if you leave it up to some women, shoot, they can do that. That's just their nature. They actually can. Now, I know some people talk about some studies where they would get with only certain men and have their babies. Well, that's because of some of the stuff the men are doing. That's, there's force. But if you allow them to, shoot. Because even with that select and non-select thing, I say the only general thing is a good body build, but a good body can be anything from, somebody like slim to somebody who's big. As long as, I would say in general, as long as the woman is enticed by it. But they can be a range. And like I said, if you actually know women, they have a range of guys they can get with. Very few women just are stuck on one thing. Just this is all you gotta be. Very few women, right? Very, very few women. So, and it's just a reality. And I would say this, because I know some people say, "Yeah, that's great." Well, go talk to some females, or pay attention to the women that you know. That's why I say one of the main things, you can learn a lot and figure out a lot just by paying attention to the women. Pay attention. Think about all the women you've known and they might have gotten with more than one guy. Like, for sure, they, like, if you in that position, a lot of guys simply not. That's why you can get a woman, she can get with one guy, he a certain race, but then get with a totally different guy, he a totally different race. It happens. So anyway, let me get on out of here. I see my man Rick over here, he about to knock on the window. So I'll talk to y'all though. Peace and blessings.